everybody, welcome to the Chess Harbor. My name is Raf and today I want to share with you another Road to Master game. This is actually the first game of this year's club championship. It was played this Tuesday, so it's very fresh off the press. The group I'm playing is actually quite stacked. There's a lot of strong players, so I hope that I can show you a lot of good games this year. The opponent I'm playing right now, I've played him about 4 times I think. I've won once and had three draws against him. I know he likes to play the King's Indian attack with knight to f3, d3, e5 and fianchettoing his bishop. I've played it multiple times against him. I kind of know how to counter it, but usually the play is quite boring, and I think he thought the same thing as he changed things up. He played the move d4 this time, so I was pleasantly surprised. So I managed to get into my opening preparation. I was preparing the Grünfeld this year, and he actually played right into it. So we see c4, bishop g3, knight to c3 and d5. So the opening of the Grünfeld. Now the main line would be to take here, kick the knight with e4, and after some exchanges white gets this very strong center, but black has thematic counterplay with a bishop coming to the long diagonal, the queen coming to a5, and you got kind of crisscross setup on the dark squares. That's quite a dangerous setup, but if white knows what they're doing, it's quite a balanced opening. It's very theoretical, of course. Played multiple times, or played a lot at highest level, as it offers very good chances at drawing, but also gives great counterplay for black. So it's really good for active players. That's why I decided to play it this year. But my opponent didn't do that. He played the move knight to f3 instead, which is a little bit more of a modern approach. There's 2 ways to play this, either with bishop to f4 or queen to b3. Queen to b3 is the Russian system. It puts pressure on b7, but also along this diagonal. So you're kind of forced to resolve the tension between the pawns. But my opponent decided to go with the bishop f4 line. So bishop to g7, bishop to f4, now castling, and e3. This is more of a modern approach where white focuses on development of their minor pieces instead of only the queen side with the broad pawn center. So that gives black very nice play in the center, I feel like. That's with the move c5, which I played. Already having 4 pawns in the center here, there's a lot of tension, but the center is going to collapse very soon. So I really like playing this line. I think it's excellent for black, actually. My opponent took on c5, which is the best move, and now I play queen to a5. And you can already see the tactics, the threats that black is creating here. You got the pin on the knight. My immediate threat is knight to e4, unleashing all these pieces on c3, and that's very scary for white. So white has to react to this. There's 2 ways. The best move is rook to c8, just putting an extra defender on the knight, but what my opponent played is not bad. It's not good either. My opponent decided to play the move bishop to e2. I'm quickly going to show you what can happen if white actually goes wrong. So if, for example, white is greedy and takes the pawn on d5, we can actually jump to e4, but there is an even better move. We can sacrifice our knight on d5. After queen takes d5, bishop takes c3 check, b takes c3 check, queen takes c3 check. This fork just wins the game. It wins material, but play is extremely sharp. So for example, king up, rook takes, bishop to e5. It's extremely sharp, an extremely sharp position where the dark squares around black's king are also a little bit dangerous, you know. So my opponent didn't go for this, as it is completely insane line. My opponent decided to play bishop to e2, just focusing on development. If he can ever castle, you know, this pin is also irrelevant. So that's what he was going for. Still played knight to e4, as I just want to put pressure. So now I have all my pieces unleashed on c3. He castles, knight takes on c3, b takes on c3, and now we reach a very interesting middle game position where black has a very good bishop on the long diagonal, and white has these extremely ugly tripled pawns. And I'm kind of spoiled for choice. I can take on c4 first, and I can take either of these two pawns. So obviously white is up a pawn, but yeah, these pawns are not gonna last. I decided to take on c4 first, as I thought if he takes back with the bishop, I can take one of these pawns and hit a tempo on the bishop. So for example, bishop takes here, I thought I could take here, the bishop is under attack and his rook is also under attack, and here I actually win an exchange in this line. But my opponent didn't go for this kind of thing. He saw the threat. He knew that this pawn wasn't going to be able to be defended. He decided to neutralize my bishop first, which is a good move. I played rook to d8, winning a tempo on his queen, and queen to c2. Now I was thinking how I could make bishop to f5 work or bishop to g4 work. Currently I couldn't see it, because even if I hit his queen again, he has e4. Yeah, it was not really nice. So I just decided to take a pawn. Now material is level again. These pawns are weak. My queenside pawns are a little bit stronger. Or excuse me, material is actually not level. I'm currently up a pawn, but this pawn is hard to hold on to. But my queenside pawns are just better. They're one island. My opponent has split pawns, so in general I have a small advantage on the queen side. But you know, the biggest advantage that white has is he has all his pieces developed. His rooks are connected, while all my pieces are still on the starting blocks, and especially these queenside minor pieces there, they really need to start coming alive. So my opponent first threw in bishop to d4. Obviously I don't want to take here, because either pawn capture would be very good for black, would be very good for white, as it gives them more ways to play for a win, I feel like, because the pawns get repaired. So I just played queen to c7. He took my bishop, I took back with the king. Now queen to a4. So as I said earlier, this pawn is almost impossible to defend. I could play bishop to e7, but then knight to g5 comes. I didn't really like that. So I decided to play practical. I played bishop to d7, forcing him to take with the queen instead of the bishop. So I can trade the queens off, and now I get rook to c8. With another threat on the pawn, but he actually parried very well. He played bishop to d5. So he attacks this, which forks my rook, so I obviously don't have time to take here. That's where the underdevelopment of the knight really comes in. So I played bishop to c5, bishop to c6, bishop takes, and knight takes, rook f to d1, and rook d8. So we still have a very, how shall I put it, very complex middle game actually. The same applies. So I have two pawns that are connected. My opponent has two split pawns. So the game still is slightly in my favor here. The engine also agrees on that. The engine believes that this position is about minus 0.5 for black, as it is slightly better with the pawns. But my opponent plays well here. He plays the king up to f1, so he wants to bring the king in and then look to trade off the rooks. I play e5. I had a very distant goal of putting my pawn on e4 and then swapping my knight to the beautiful d3 outpost. But currently that's not really possible. The other reason I play e5 is to kind of control his knight. So if his knight ever comes to d4, I was actually thinking that in this position, if he plays knight to d4, I would play e5 as well, because if he takes here, I take here, excuse me, and the position is symmetrical, but at least I have some sort of idea here. He can't really double, but I could push a pawn up to one of these two squares and then try to double my rooks on the d file, and if he ever takes back, I could get a connected passer. So that was my long-term idea in this position. but my opponent didn't allow that. So he played rook here, I played rook to d8, king to f1, and now e5, king e2, and it was obvious that he just wanted to trade rooks or try to double, so he might try to bring his rooks over to the d file now. So I played f6, so I could also bring in my king. So rook takes, rook d1. I decided to take on d1, as allowing him to take here and bringing my knight back is kind of weak. So the kings start to come in, and my king reaches d5. My king reaches the center first, but this game is still very complex. But it's actually dead. It seems very complex, but it's quite dead. The pawns on the king side are not doing anything, and his king is on the queen side. My king is on the queen side. These two pawns are not going to get past these two pawns. So my opponent plays d2. I play f5 because I want to stop his knight from coming in. f3, king to c5, and here my opponent offered a draw, and I accepted the draw offer because the position I could try to play on. The engine believes that this position is minus 0.3 for black, as again my pawns are slightly better, but my opponent neutralized very well, and I think the draw is entirely deserved here. So we shook hands, and the game ended in a draw, which I think is fine. My opponent is quite a strong opponent. I believe that he is one of the better players in our group. So playing for a draw with black, always nice. I managed to show off my Grünfeld preparation. So especially this line with bishop to f4 I think is excellent, with a very strong idea of c5 and queen a5. It's very fun to play for black. Definitely one to remember. But instead of playing here with the more passive approach that I had, I could have tried to held on for a little bit longer. Let me go a bit further. In this position, the engine believes that I have a stronger move with the move a5. So after rook to d1, the engine believes that knight to a5 is just a tad stronger for black, with the idea that the rook can come in, but the knight defends the b7 pawn, and my king can come to f8 to defend the e7 pawn, and I still have the pressure on the pawn on the c file. So white has nothing better than to defend their c pawn, and now my rook can come into the game, and my rooks are slightly more active than white's. The engine believes that this position is about minus 0.9 to minus 1. It's slightly better for black, but yeah, I didn't even calculate this during the game. I didn't believe that it was possible to play for a win in a position where these four rooks are on the board. So I was happy with the draw offer. I took it, and let's just see that we can win in a couple of weeks when I play my next opponent. Thanks for watching.